Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction to Killing Eve Season 3, Episode 5. Is Killing Eve really about killing Eve if Eve actually does not appear in the entire episode?
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to talk about it.
This is one of the most interesting episodes to me of the show, and it's kind of, don't want to call it a trend because it reminds me a lot of this episode of The Blacklist a week and a half ago where James Spader didn't appear at all, and now we have an episode without Sandra Oh making a single second of an appearance, and this is the Villanelle trip to Mother Russia where things don't exactly go according to plan.
They do not.
I think that's a good enough tease, and we're going to dive in here. Before we do, though, if you do like this video, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other updates.
All right, before we start, we got to talk about Jodie's performance in this episode because it is so good. And I mean, we're all Villanelle fans out there, so to have a whole episode that's all about her was pretty exciting. But there was some really good stuff in here for Jodie that really almost brought me to tears as well, with her dealing with her family and that feeling of rejection that many people out there have felt with their family. Really amazing performance.
There's so much different range in here too. Like I love the giddy Villanelle winning the oscillating fan at whatever we want to call this.
And I love the moment when they're all at the table and they're playing the games together and then they're singing Elton John and they're all dancing around. Then you get that quick moment right before the cut where she starts singing too. And
I was so mad at the editors. I was like, can I just have 5 seconds of Jodie doing the Crocodile Rock interlude? Is that too much to ask?
I thought it was perfect. We had just that second where it was like, oh, she's part of this. No, it was good. I really, really loved it.
I'm salty. I wanted more. But anyway, I do agree. Jodie's outstanding in this episode. And I think that in between Jodie this week, in this episode, and Katrina on Outlander, it's like, how blessed are we all as TV fans to get like two like mind-numbingly good performances in just 24 hours? But Jodie is so good in this, and I think this is an episode that people are going to be able to go back and kind of watch isolated from the rest of the show a couple of years down the road, and they'll sort of think of it as like this just really fascinating one-off. It's not really a bottle episode because there are multiple different settings in it, but it has that sort of feel where it's all kind of self-contained in itself.
For sure. And I mean, by the time we got to the end of this episode, it's obvious that what has happened with her in this episode is now going to be fueling her going forward. So we had her actually learn that we had learned it actually in the finale last season that her family is not all dead as she thought. So now we have her deciding, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to find them. I'm going to see what's there. If there's anything there, maybe some answers, maybe some acceptance, maybe who knows what's going to be there, but I'm ready to open the door.
And she does her best to do it. And I feel, and I felt this before with Villanelle, that a lot of her actions are driven by an insecurity. And I think she has this insecurity throughout this episode where she doesn't want to be turned away. And she barges into the home. She's just sitting there while people sort of get to know her. She basically does not give them a choice. I mean, it doesn't get to the point where they call the cops on her because she's able to eventually kind of bring forward who she really is. But she sort of forcibly integrates herself in there so that eventually she can actually know and understand what it is to have this thing that she's never really fully had. I mean, Constantine is many things to Villanelle, but, you know, he's not actual family.
Yeah, which was made abundantly clear to her in the last season finale when he had a choice to kind of sell her out or not sell her out and be back with his family, and he sold her out. So that was sort of the moment that I think she realized that she really truly is alone, and that even if you have a bad relationship with your family, they're still your family. So they're going to be there no matter if you have a dark soul or you don't.
I think she was so, and this is why it's so interesting with this show, because Villanelle has done so many awful things through 3 seasons, and yet you watch this and you can't help but feel a layer of sympathy for her, where she's trying, I think, so hard in parts of this episode to really fit in, to try to feel like a part of this community. I loved every second of the festival sequence.
I was about to say, watching her flinging dung across the field and getting so excited and jumping up on the podium and hugging her oscillating fan and just that big smile on her face. I mean, it was very telling of how much she just wants to feel like she's part of something. And I mean, she was an orphan. We learned that she was left at this orphanage. Her mother claims that she was only going to be there for a month and that she was probably going to go back and get her, but that the orphanage burned down and it was Villanelle's fault, which of course it was. But she didn't know for sure. She didn't, but she knew, she was told that she was dead. And then, of course, Villanelle was told that her family had died in a car crash. So it kept them apart.
I think also, I like how there's a lot of resistance to her in this episode, but for a while you sort of see her try to fight back against it, including, why are you speaking English? Why are you doing this? And she always seemed to have some sort of counter. This is probably my favorite ridiculous thing about this episode, the performance group trio. I feel like I could go up there and make this into a quartet and it would not actually impact the quality of whatever they were doing at all.
It was so good.
They were not good. They were so good because they were so not good.
The whole scene where you have like her, and I guess this is her youngest brother at this point, or half brother or step brother. It wasn't abundantly completely clear, but clearly he's part of this family. And then you've got she's trying to stop him from hitting himself in the head, and then you've got the dance thing going on, and then her mother is there with this crazy weird darkness in her because we had Villanelle just learn that basically after this kid just lost this contest, that instead of going up and being like, hey, it's all right, better luck next time, you're an embarrassment to the family, which I'm sure is something that Villanelle felt as well, being left at an orphanage and never to see them again.
That kid is, I think, the one example of what Villanelle is actually looking for in this episode, which is something a little bit more unconditional, sorry. Yeah. And that's where and why you have her deciding to make this kid's dream come true. Sure, she blows up the house and murders a lot of people close to him, but he gets to go see Elton John. That makes it okay, right?
I also like that she knew that her actual brother was sleeping in the barn, because when that was happening, I was like, I really hope she gets her other brother out of there. And I know he said that he sometimes sleeps in the barn earlier in the episode, but he said he sometimes sleeps in the barn. So I was kind of like, oh no. This kid actually really liked Villanelle. That moment where they were kind of at the festival before it was happening and everyone's getting everything together and he's beside her and hugging her and being like, this is my sister. I was just like, oh, that's so nice. This is kind of a little bit of what she's looking for.
It was sort of Villanelle, and she's lived out various fantasies before. I think she does like to sort of get into the character of whatever she's doing sometimes, only to realize it's not really fully there, such as the wedding that we probably shall not speak of again because it did not go anywhere. I think she wanted to live in that world. I think she wants to live in this world until ultimately she finds herself in a situation where all that acceptance she was wanting just gets promptly slammed right in her face.
That scene with her and her mother where she is on the floor basically her heart is out there, sort of like I can't believe we're having this conversation. We've been separated for all these years. We have found each other again. Yes, I know I have darkness in my heart, but so do you, Mom. So let's just accept each other. The rest of the family accepts you with this darkness. Why can't I also be part of this family with this darkness? And that moment where her mother again was like, you need to go, get out of here. Jodie with the tears and just that stuttering of her disbelief of, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to kill you, which is basically, you have broken my heart into a million pieces. I can't believe I'm being abandoned again by you again. That it was so emotional and heartbreaking. Really good performance.
I think she decides in that moment too that, okay, I can't let you hurt me again. I can't put myself in this position. That's why I need to do away with you. And that sort of sets up this big house explosion that goes down, where ultimately I think this is Villanelle trying to be like, I thought this is something that I needed, that I wanted. It's obviously not for me. Maybe this refocuses her moving forward. I'm kind of curious to know if we see any of these people ever again.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is when we saw her later, she was on the train going wherever she's going now, and we saw her kind of having a bit of a mental breakdown sort of in her head and trying to hold it together. And it's going to be interesting going forward because she has been letting herself be really vulnerable with Eve in a way that she's not vulnerable with other people. So is this then going to turn to a situation where she's going to feel like she needs to be even more vulnerable? She needs Eve even more than she did before, because now the dream of the family, that is kaput.
Yeah.
Or is it going to turn into a thing where, okay, if my family doesn't accept me, then Eve is really not going to accept me. So me and Eve, we're also done. I'm just very curious to see where that's going to go with the way that Villanelle is feeling now.
Honestly, and this is not to just stand atop the fence here, I could actually see it going either way. I honestly don't know how they're going to pull that, because, yeah, I could see her being like, I'm going to dissociate myself from everybody now because I'm just going to get hurt. I'm going to focus on just moving up the ranks, trying to find a way to get more successful, because this is at least how I get some sort of validation, and I can build my own community even if it's out of fear. Or maybe that makes her more desperate for Eve. Maybe Eve is that only option remaining.
Yeah. So the only thing that I had a bit of an issue with, or that I'm kind of having an issue with throughout the whole season, is that it feels really disjointed. So this is episode 5 now. We've seen Eve and Villanelle together one time in all these episodes. And for me, a lot of the joy that I have with this show is having these two on screen together, because the chemistry is undeniable, the performances are incredible, and the back and forth between them is just what I'm living for with this show. So to only have like really this one scene with them and then nothing else has felt a little bit lacking for me. And then you add on top of it sort of that we've got these big moments that are happening and then no payoff with them. We had Kenny die, and then, you know, a little bit of talking about it, but nothing's really coming together with this. And now we've had Nico die and no mention of it in this episode. And this is where I feel like the placement of this episode just felt off for me. And it reminded me of what happened when we saw The Walking Dead. We saw this episode where we thought Glenn was dead and he was under the dumpster and all the zombies were on top of him, and I thought he was gone. I'm telling you, I could not wait for that next episode, counting down the days like everybody else out there. And then the next episode was an hour and a half of Morgan. And it was one of the best episodes I've ever seen. One of my top 5 favorite Walking Dead episodes. But I'll tell you, at the time that that episode was airing, I was amongst everyone else who was super salty, wanting to know if Glenn was actually dead and he was leaving the show or not, because it wasn't clear and there was no mention of it. I've now gone back and watched that Morgan episode a whole bunch of times. I'm like, that episode is so good, but it was really poorly placed because people didn't end up giving it the chance that it needed. So now we had episode 4 that ended with Nico getting killed. Is Eve going to believe that Villanelle is behind this? Is this actually going to fracture their relationship? And then nothing. This episode, I almost feel like this episode needed to be in episode 3, where it kind of would wrap that part up and we would actually know what's going on with their family, know what's going on with Villanelle, and see how it changes her moving into everything else.
I think right now, this is just where I'm at with it, is I think what you're saying could work. The only other idea I have is, because I feel like the pacing in 2, 3, and 4 this season was kind of slow at times. I kind of feel like there might have been a way to condense a lot of those 3 episodes into 2 episodes, have this be episode 4, and then you could instead have 4 more episodes after the fact to sort of deal with the aftermath of it, because that's my big concern right now is we only have 3 episodes left this season.
Yeah, and we still have Kenny hanging thread, we still have Nico hanging thread. There's everything that's still kind of hanging with even Villanelle. There's Villanelle and the 12 and whatever's going on with that story as well. It just feels like there's all these different stories going on that don't have enough of a connection for me.
And maybe these episodes will be so tightly put together, and maybe this is going to bring Villanelle and Eve closer together, and it'll make more sense after the fact. But yeah, for right now, it's a little bit perplexing, but I'm gonna propose one last thing here. This is, that scene with the headphones on at the end, which you brought up earlier. I love the scene, and this is, I think, purely up for interpretation.
Yep.
Do you think that she was listening to Crocodile Rock?
Oh!
I will tell you, I watched it a couple of times because Jodie was kind of moving her mouth a little bit. I was trying to see if she was mouthing the words. I couldn't figure it out.
Oh, that just gave me the goosebumps. I'm going to feel like that's what she was listening to.
That is what I am going to hold into my heart for. And and this is all interpretation, right? But I think if that is the case,
I love that.
That would probably make this one of my 5 favorite episodes of this show.
For sure.
So I hope that that's what they were doing. But maybe there'll be an interview after the fact. But I am really excited to hear what all you guys have to say about this episode, because it is weird and experimental and different.
And so good.
So let us know what you thought in the comments. And if you did like this discussion, give us a like, subscribe, and you can support us further by checking the link in the description to the store. And we'll see you here next time. My throat is going, but I'm okay. There we go. We'll see you next time.